Obama has decimated the friggin' Constitution. So I don't give a damn, because if he doesn't follow the Constitution, we don't have to.
Who needs that old archaic Constitution and annoying Congress when you can tour the world on the taxpayers' dime and trample their rights in the process, right? Attorney General Loretta Lynch? No one except your band of cohorts were impressed when you went after a meaningless game as you tackled FIFA instead of throwing the bankers laundering the drug cartel's billions under the jail, kicking the proverbial soccer ball down the road. Rather than present her case to the American people from any number of American establishments, Attorney General Lynch, basking in New World Order arrogance, bypassed the American people, bringing together a vile congregation to the Islamic High Council, the United Nations. Speakers included the diligent socialist mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, who expressed the ominous, "Extremism doesn't discriminate. It comes in many forms. It comes in many different backgrounds and ideologies. Our mission should be to address extremism in all of its forms." And Jordan's High Commissioner for Human Rights, Prince Zayed Ra'ad Al Hussein, a human rights council that just made the xenophobic and brutal nation of Saudi Arabia a member. Writing for Breitbart, Pamela Geller explained, "The United Nations is a Sharia-compliant world body, and Obama, speaking there just days ago, insisted that violent extremism is not exclusive to Islam." Which it is. Obama is redefining jihad terror to include everyone but the jihadists. So will the UN, driven largely by Sharia enforcing Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the OIC, and the pro-Islamic post-American President Obama, use a global police force to crush counter-jihad forces? This global police force was dreamed up by professors in the halls of Oxford and spearheaded by the New World Order think tank, the Institute of Strategic Dialogue, now launched as of September 29th, 2015 by our traitorous government. It is described on the Strong Cities Network website as a global network of local authorities united in building resilience to prevent violent extremism. An international steering committee of cities and local authorities selected from different regions across the globe. Of course, Muslim Americans are complaining they will be targeted. American Thinker writes, "The Strong Cities program has been criticized by the New York Civil Liberties Union and by American Muslim activists, fearful that it will target Muslims. Similar criticisms have been leveled against the Department of Justice Countering Violent Extremism program, notably by the Islamists posing as civil rights group Council on American Islamic Relations. New York groups like the NYCLU, Association of Muslim American Lawyers, and the Justice League of NYC expressed concern that New York would eventually become active with the Justice Department's Countering Violent Extremism, or CVE, programs, which they say overwhelmingly target Muslim communities. But most Americans know what Shinola looks and smells like, and are well aware of who the real target is. Oath Keepers asks, what assurances are there that it will be gained in accordance with individual protections mandated in the Bill of Rights? Just what best practices are acceptable? And will the representatives of our people, that would be the Congress, have unfettered oversight of the process? What further protections will there be against foreign law influencing decisions required to comport with the supreme law of the land? This has expressed an interest in considering flexible. President Obama is desperately attempting to decrease the overwhelming amount of gun owners to create a level playing field in which the New World Order can thrive. But it was his own policies and arrogance that led to record numbers of Americans stockpiling guns and ammunition. Obama's latest berserk executive order authority would impose new background check requirements for buyers who purchase weapons from high-volume gun dealers. Under the proposed rule change, dealers who exceed a certain number of sales each year would be required to obtain a license from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives and perform background checks on potential buyers. At this point, I'm sure the average American citizen contends that this all sounds completely unreasonable, considering the irony of President Obama's increasingly transparent administration that has blatantly waged war on constitutionally protected whistleblowers, clandestinely grown ISIS, ISIL, or whatever the hell you want to call it, and quietly aided a flood into the United States of anti-American Islamic extremist terror cells. Good luck, America. We're all counting on you. John Bound for Infowars.com.
And as the global tyranny of world government comes out in the open, comes out of the shadows, it's going to become more and more ridiculously obvious that these people do not have our best interest at heart and are smashing any semblance of culture, national sovereignty, the family, individualism. It is a conquering of the human species, turning us into a bunch of milling, dumbed down, drugged out, TV head, iPad head gerbils. There's a massive launch after the Second Amendment. We've got the latest developments on that. We've got China asking the world to impose a code of conduct on the internet. That means censorship on the internet. We have the IMF saying Iceland has repaid and found out that 93% of the debt was not the country's, and that it was less than $1 billion that the people actually owed. Then England, the UK, tried to declare that everyone in Iceland, 400,000 plus people, were terrorists, and that they couldn't get on British Airways flights. That, of course, got defeated in court. So now, 7 years later, they've paid off the remaining $332 million, which is nothing, for basically a city, Reykjavik, where most of them live, of 400,000 people to pay off. Wasn't $8 billion, wasn't $10 billion, was less than $1 billion. Like $800 million if you go back to the time. And now they've paid it off. 90+% of the debt was not theirs, and they had been signed on to mainly British debt, UK debt. And the reason this is important is they're the only country to say no to paying debts that aren't theirs. And that's what globalism is all about. Like I said, I'd cover it later. I'm covering it right now. They've created the private central banks over 2.2, according to USA Today, probably a lot bigger now. That number is a couple years old. $2.2 quadrillion in derivatives. And they've had every major Western government, from Japan to Canada, the United States to Germany, Australia, Belgium, France, it doesn't matter. Western industrialized nations, they've signed us on to it, and it turns out country by country. Ireland, it's 91% of the debt isn't theirs. In the UK, 92% of the debt isn't theirs. In the United States, 90% of the debt isn't ours. You can look this up. It's not our debt, but you see the big mega banks were too big to fail in 2008. They took the stock market down by a third. Everybody panicked and they said, okay, bail us out. But when you bail them out, you're suddenly in debt to them. They've now enjoyed 8 years of unlimited, free, taxpayer-backed, interest-free money. And they've expanded derivatives since that point. And you have a politically ignorant population. You have a politically inept population. You have a politically illiterate population. They are like lambs to the slaughter, not understanding this. You can break it down and just search the fact that Greece has no debts when they actually look at what they've already paid, but it doesn't matter. This is how you're conquered, by white-collar fraud, where the large 5 megabanks put their operatives in over a period of time into your government, and both parties, or in the case of Greece or other nations, 3 or 4 parties, and then it's game over. They can conquer you financially. And what do these big banks promote? Open borders, attacks on the family, higher taxes, smaller homes, less energy, austerity, that you're poor, you're living hand to mouth, so you can't speak up, so you can't resist, so you can't be uppity and prosperous.